It's hard for me to imagine anything that's changed more in local church ministry in the last 25 to 30 years than worship and music. I remember as a kid seeing my grandfather standing at a pulpit with the hymnal open, leading worship while my grandmother was over there tickling the ivories on the organ or the piano. To seeing the rise of Hillsong in the 90s, and now current music ministries that have the production value that would rival any production in the country. As part of my Role Clarity Roundup conversation with Todd Sturgell, I asked him to reflect back on 27 years in worship ministry and what are the biggest changes that he's seen. So check it out, and while you're watching, begin making your list. What are the biggest changes that you've seen? One question I have, and somebody who grew up in the church and the Christian world, is how have the expectation and roles for what a worship leader does changed in the last 20, 25 years?
I think it's changed a lot. I think that when I first started, many years ago, um, there was a lot more. Um, it was truly a pastoral role. Like you were coming on to help pastor churches, and I think that where it has changed the most is now there's not a whole lot of people that I would say that are worship pastors. They are worship leaders. And the difference in that is worship leaders are almost like a hired gun,
Mhm.
where churches they don't necessarily work during the week. They come in, they help with the band, they lead worship, they great vocalist, they love God, but they have another job or they do something else on the side, and it's not so much of a pastoring role, but it's a worship leader role. And so, I think that's good in a lot of ways, but I think that's bad in a lot of ways, because I think that you miss out on so much of what I talked about earlier of pastoring people, and you just can't do all of that. And I found that most of the time they don't want to do that. They just want to get up and have their guitar and lead worship and you know say a prayer and then they're done. And they might even do that at another church the next week,
Yeah.
or whoever is going to hire them to come and do it. So I think that worship pastor role has really shifted as a whole. Um, and like I said, I think it has some good and it has some bad. But I think that's one of the major things that has changed over the years.
Yeah. And boy, we could dig deep here. I think too. I think for a lead pastor who's looking and having this conversation, also is just that thing of are we if you're going to choose the worship pastor maybe who has that pastor's heart, or sometimes the reason why you have hired gun for a worship leader is because they are a unbelievably talented person
Right,
doing it.
right.
And that's one of the things I say about role clarity is, for me, a lot of times when I'm working with a team, I'm not here to tell you what it should be, but
Right.
somewhere on a piece of paper, we should be able to look and see this is what I'm hiring for. This is what we're
Yeah.
asking someone to be. Can this person fulfill that? Um,
Yeah.
I think it's
And a
a
lot of times
big
in
one.
Yeah, and a lot of times in those situations, especially at some of a larger church or even a mid-sized church, they can hire somebody in to do that is uber talented, can, loves the Lord, that kind of stuff, as long as they have somebody else that's on staff, a worship director, whatever it might be, that is doing those other things that I was talking about.
Yeah,
So, that's how that can work. But if you don't have both of those pieces, either in one person or having two people or a group of people doing that, it can be, I don't think it's a healthy thing. I think it's not gonna help you long term to grow and to be the congregation or be the
yeah,
fellowship or the group of people that you want to be.
yeah. And a lot of times, when I'm being in situations like this, a lot of times what I'll say is, it's sometimes it's great we'll have this one role and splitting it into two people doing
Yeah,
different parts, and actually let you have some more specialists, but just make exactly what you said,
yeah,
making sure that it's still
yeah.
covered. The pastoring part is still is still covered, even if you have them, somebody, a worship leader coming in and working underneath them or working alongside them. So, what do you think? In the comments below, let me know the biggest changes that you've seen during your lifetime or your time around music ministry. This clip was actually part of a larger conversation that Todd and I had about the role clarity for worship leaders. I actually have created a reflection guide to help you find your answer to what you consider to be the 4 key roles for a worship leader, along with some reflection and discussion questions. You can find the download information in the description below and use it whether you're someone who's hiring or leading a worship leader. Maybe you are a worship leader or think that's a position that you would like to have and want to get some focus about the areas that matter most. More than anything, I know that role clarity can be revolutionary for those of us who feel pulled in 100 different directions. So I hope you find some value in the guide and in the other videos on the channel.